My sister-in-law hired private detectives to prove I was lying about my company. She planned to humiliate me at my New Year's Eve party, but when the agents walked in, they did not bring evidence. They brought handcuffs. The band was playing loud music in my backyard. 80 people were laughing, making toasts, celebrating the close of another year. I held a glass of sparkling cider in my right hand and smiled as I greeted my employees, my friends, my family. But inside, my heart was beating with the precision of someone who knows they are about to witness something terrible. Then, I saw her. Victoria walked through the front door with that smile I knew all too well. That smile that never reached her eyes. She was dressed in black, as if she had come to a funeral, and maybe she had. Maybe she had come to mine. Behind her were two men in dark suits, serious, carrying leather briefcases. One of them wore dark sunglasses, even though it was already nighttime. The other checked his watch every few seconds, as if he were in a hurry to finish a dirty job. My sister-in-law walked straight toward me. She crossed the dance floor, dodging the waiters. She ignored the greetings. Her high heels clicked against the stone patio pavers like hammer strikes. I felt all eyes beginning to follow her. The conversations lowered in volume. Someone asked the musician to lower the trumpet. When she arrived in front of me, she stopped. She looked me up and down with that disdain she had perfected over 5 years. 5 years since her brother Mark married my daughter Sarah. 5 years of poisoned comments, of questions disguised as concern, of visits that felt like interrogations. "Eleanor?" She said my name as if it were an accusation. What a lovely party. It must have cost a fortune. I did not answer immediately. I just held her gaze. I learned a long time ago that silence can be more powerful than any word. "I suppose when one has so much money," she continued, raising her voice so others could hear, "it is easy to spend on parties. Although one wonders, where does all that money really come from?" There it was. The first public stab. I felt my daughter Sarah approaching from the other side of the garden. I saw the worry on her face, the fear, the confusion, and something else that broke my heart, the doubt. "Victoria," I said with a calm voice, although my hands were trembling, "if you have something to tell me, this is neither the place nor the time." She laughed, a short, sharp laugh, designed to humiliate. "It is not the time. Oh, Eleanor, that is precisely why I chose this moment, because it is time for everyone to know the truth." She snapped her fingers. The two men in suits stepped forward. One opened his briefcase. The other took out a bulging folder of documents. "These gentlemen," announced Victoria, turning toward the guests as if she were the protagonist of a play, "are private investigators. I hired them 3 months ago to investigate the finances of my dear sister-in-law." The garden fell into complete silence. Even the band stopped playing. 80 pairs of eyes were watching me, some with pity, others with morbid curiosity. My employees looked at me with disbelief. My accountant, Mr. Stevens, had turned pale. And do you know what they discovered? Victoria savored every word. Fraud, falsified documents, embezzlement of funds. My sister-in-law, this woman who poses as an honest businesswoman, has been stealing. And not just any amount. $3,800,000. Sarah let out a stifled cry. Mark, her husband, held her by the shoulders, but he did not look at me. He looked at the ground. "Victoria, this is ridiculous," I managed to say, although my voice sounded weaker than I would have liked. "Ridiculous?" She stepped closer, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, the one she always wore to prove she also had class. "Here is the proof. Altered bank statements, phantom contracts, fake invoices, all with your signature, Eleanor, all with your name." The men began to pull out papers, sheets and sheets that they exhibited in front of everyone as if they were evidence in a trial. I recognized some documents, others I had never seen in my life. "I came here tonight," continued Victoria, "because I thought you deserved the chance to confess, in front of everyone, to admit what you have done, to ask for forgiveness from your daughter before this reaches the authorities." In that moment, something broke inside me. It was not rage. It was not fear. It was something worse, a mixture of betrayal, exhaustion, and sadness, so deep I felt the ground opening beneath my feet. 67 years. 67 years of working with honesty, of building my company from zero, of stitching linens at 3 in the morning when my hands were bleeding, of selling door to door, of getting up after my husband died, and the world told me it was too late for me. And now this. I looked at my daughter. She returned my gaze with tears in her eyes, but she did not come closer, she did not defend me. She just stood there, paralyzed, next to her husband, next to the brother of the woman who was destroying my life. Victoria smiled. She had won. Or so she thought. Now, she said, crossing her arms, I am going to give you 2 options, Eleanor. Either you sign the company over to Sarah this very night to protect her from your crimes, or we call the police. The garden remained in silence. I felt 80 pairs of eyes waiting for my answer. And then I heard something, a sound I would recognize anywhere. Sirens. Victoria furrowed her brow. The 2 men in suits exchanged nervous glances. The sirens were getting closer, louder and louder. What the? Victoria turned toward the entrance. Red and blue lights illuminated the walls of my house. 2 patrol cars, 4 uniformed officers, and behind them, 2 men with jackets that said District Attorney in gold letters. But what satisfied me most was seeing the expression on Victoria's face when one of the prosecutors approached. Not me, her. If you want to know how I reached that moment, how I went from being the victim to completely flipping the game, and what I really discovered about my sister-in-law, subscribe to the channel and stay until the end, because this story is just beginning. But before telling you how that night ended, I need you to understand how it all started. Because my story does not begin with Victoria. It begins 30 years ago, in a stall at the flea market, when I was still Eleanor Vance, a recent widow with a 10-year-old girl and exactly $4,200 in the bank. My husband Arthur had died in a traffic accident. A cargo truck ran a red light. He was on his motorcycle, returning from his shift at the textile factory. He had no chance. The driver did not even stop. He left me alone, with Sarah. With debts, with a future that looked like a dead-end street. The first weeks were the worst. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I stared at the ceiling of our small 2-room apartment in the city and wondered how we were going to survive. The pension they gave me barely covered the rent. Arthur's relatives disappeared after the funeral. No one wanted to be burdened with 2 more mouths to feed. One afternoon, while I was emptying Arthur's closet, I found something. A wooden box I had never seen. Inside were fabrics, scraps of cotton, linen, silk. He had saved them from the factory, pieces they were going to throw away. I also found needles, colored threads, and a note written in his handwriting. For when you decide to make those linens you liked so much. Arthur knew that as a girl, I had learned to embroider with my grandmother. Flowers, birds, geometric patterns. Patterns she taught me with patience while she told me stories of her own life. That night, I made a decision. I was not going to stay crying. I was not going to wait for someone to rescue me. I was going to rescue myself. I spent 3 weeks embroidering my first tablecloth, a design of yellow sunflowers on a cream background. Every stitch was a prayer. Every flower, a promise that Sarah and I were going to get ahead. I sold it at the market for $300. An older lady bought it for her daughter's birthday. When she paid me, she said, "You have hands of gold, darling." They were not hands of gold. They were tired hands, with calluses and scars. But they were my hands, and they could create something beautiful. During 5 years, I worked like that, from sunup to sundown. I embroidered at night after Sarah went to sleep. I sold on the weekends at different markets, downtown, the riverfront, the art fair. I went wherever. I carried my linens in canvas bags, took 2 buses, and planted myself in front of a borrowed table that cost me $100 a day. Little by little, things improved. I started receiving special orders. Tablecloths for weddings, napkins for restaurants, even some small hotels ordered complete sets. I hired 2 ladies from my building to help me. I paid them per piece. We all won. When Sarah turned 15, we already had a small workshop, 6 sewing machines, 10 embroiderers. I rented a space on Main Street and put up a sign. Liberty Textiles. Why Liberty if I am from the city? Because that was the nickname Arthur gave me. He said I shone like the torch on the Statue of Liberty. It was my way of keeping him alive in my work. The years passed. Sarah grew up. She studied business administration at a state university. She was intelligent, organized, a dreamer. Sometimes I saw her reviewing my accounting books, and I felt a pride so big my throat closed up. She was my reason for existing, my engine, my everything. By the time she turned 25, Liberty Textiles was no longer a small workshop. It was a formal company, 45 employees, contracts with hotel chains, exports to other states. We had gone from embroidered tablecloths to luxury bedding, towels with exclusive designs, custom curtains. I never remarried. There were suitors, yes, good men who invited me to dinner, who brought me flowers. But I was married to my work, to my daughter, to that promise I made to Arthur in front of his grave. I am going to give her the life you wanted for her. And I achieved it. Sarah never went hungry, never lacked clothes, never had to leave school. When she graduated, I cried in the front row. When she got her first job as an accountant at a logistics company, we toasted with cheap champagne in the living room of our house. My house, because by then I had already bought one. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small garden with purple hydrangeas. In a nice suburban neighborhood, nothing ostentatious. But it was mine, without a mortgage, without owing anything to anyone. Life was good, or so I thought. Everything changed 5 years ago, when Sarah arrived one afternoon with bright eyes and introduced me to Mark. He was a sales manager at the company where she worked, 32 years old, good-looking, polite. He wore pressed shirts and polished shoes. He talked about projects, investments, travels. I liked him at first. He seemed ambitious, hard-working. My daughter liked him, and her eyes sparkled when she looked at him. "Mom," Sarah told me that night, after Mark left, "I think he is the one." And I, foolish me, was happy, because every mother wants to see her daughter in love. Every mother wants her daughter to have what she could not keep. They got married a year later. A simple wedding in a garden, 100 guests, a string quartet, a 3-tier cake. I paid for everything with pleasure. I was the only family Sarah had. Her father could not be there, but I was there for both of us. It was at that wedding where I met Victoria, Mark's younger sister, 38 years old, divorced, no children. She arrived in a red dress that attracted too much attention, perfect makeup, long nails painted black. She moved as if the world owed her something. From the first moment, something about her made me uncomfortable. The way she looked at my house when she came to the wedding, the way she touched things, as if evaluating their price, the way she asked me, with a sweet and poisonous smile, "And you paid for all this yourself, Eleanor? How impressive for someone of your generation." Of my generation, as if at 62 years old I were a relic who should be sitting knitting and not running a company. But I swallowed the discomfort. She was my son-in-law's sister, family. And family is respected. If I had known then what I know now, I would have thrown her out of my house that same day. Because Victoria did not come into my life by chance. She came with a plan, and I, without knowing it, had just opened the door to the wolf. The first months after the wedding were normal. Sarah and Mark moved into an apartment in the city. I visited them on Sundays, brought food, shared coffee. Mark continued to be kind, attentive. My daughter seemed happy. Victoria appeared in the 3rd week. She knocked on my door on a Tuesday afternoon. I had just returned from the factory. My feet were swollen, and the only thing I wanted was to take off my shoes and make myself a chamomile tea. I opened the door, and there she was. With that smile I was already starting to know. "Eleanor, forgive me for coming without warning," she said, entering before I invited her. "I was just passing by and thought, why don't I visit my sister-in-law? We are family now, right?" Family. That word she would use as a master key to enter my life. She sat in my living room as if it were her house. She looked at the paintings, the photos, the antique cabinet I had inherited from my grandmother. Her eyes moved, calculating, measuring, appraising. "What a beautiful house," she said. "It must be worth good money. Here in this neighborhood. Did you buy it a long time ago?" 12 years ago, I answered, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "And did you pay cash, or do you have a mortgage?" The question hit me like a bucket of cold water. Who asks those things on a first visit? but Victoria made it look natural, like simple curiosity. Cash, I said briefly. I saw how her eyebrows raised just barely, as if she had confirmed something she already suspected. Wow, how well you have done with your tablecloth business. Tablecloth business. As if 30 years of work were a hobby, as if Liberty Textiles were a roadside stand. We do not just make tablecloths anymore, I corrected, trying to keep my voice kind. We have contracts with hotels, hospitals, spas, industrial production. Oh, sure, she said, taking out her cell phone. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Would you let me take a picture of that painting? I have a friend who is a decorator, and she would love to see the style of your house. She did not wait for my answer. She was already photographing. First the painting, then casually the entire living room. Then she got up and went toward the dining room. Click. Another photo. Click. The bookshelf with my documents. Victoria, what are you doing? I asked, following her. Oh, sorry. It is just that your house is so pretty. I love the style. Is that your desk? She had entered my study, my private space, where I had my computer, my files, the company documents. On the desk, I had left some bank statements, pending invoices to review. Yes, but... Click. She photographed the entire desk, sneakily, but she did it. Victoria, please, that is private. Huh? Oh, sorry. I did not realize, she said, putting away the phone with an innocent smile. It is the habit of taking photos of everything. You know how one is. I sat with her to drink coffee. For an hour she asked me questions, all apparently innocent, all poisoned. How many employees did I have? How much did I pay them? How did I handle payroll? Did I have an accountant? Did I pay all my taxes? Who was my main supplier? How did I get the contracts with the hotels? Every question was a knife disguised as curiosity. It just impresses me so much, she said. A woman of your age, a widow, carrying all this forward alone. It must be very difficult to manage so many numbers, right? Sometimes I wonder if you do not get confused with so many accounts. Of your age. As if at 62 years old my brain no longer functioned. I manage well, I answered dryly. Sure. Although you know how this business thing is. There are always, how to say it, gray zones, ways to move money to pay fewer taxes. It is normal. Everyone does it. She was setting a trap for me. She wanted me to admit something, anything she could use later. I pay my taxes in full, I said firmly. I have nothing to hide. Of course not, she said, smiling. I am just saying that if you ever need advice or help with something delicate, I have contacts. People who know how to move in those environments. What environments? What was this woman talking about? After she left, I remained seated in my living room with a strange sensation in my stomach, like when you know something is wrong, but you cannot point out exactly what. But that was only the first visit. Victoria returned, again and again, always with some excuse. That she was in the area, that she wanted to see her sister-in-law, that Mark had asked her to stop by to say hello. Every visit was the same, questions disguised as friendly chat, casual photos of my house, comments about how well I had done financially, insinuations that it was suspicious for a widow to have so much money. One day, she arrived with a folder. Look, Eleanor, I brought you this, she said, taking out some brochures. They are investment funds. Very safe. I work part-time as a financial advisor, and I thought you might be interested. With all the money you have saved, you could multiply it. How did she know how much money I had saved? I am not interested, I said. But just take a look. Here you can see the returns. If you give me your bank statements, I can do a personalized analysis for you at no cost. She wanted my bank statements. She wanted access to my numbers. No, thanks. Her smile hardened for just a second. Then it returned, wide and fake. As you wish. I was just trying to help, between family. 3 months after that conversation, Sarah and Mark came to eat. I noticed something strange. My daughter was quiet, Mark too. They ate in silence, exchanging glances that I could not decipher. Is something wrong? I asked. Sarah looked at her husband. He nodded, as if giving her permission to speak. Mom, said my daughter, playing with her napkin. Mark and I have been talking about your company. My blood froze. What about my company? It is just that. Victoria mentioned some things to us, and we worried. Victoria? Of course. What things? I asked, although I already intuited the answer. She says the numbers do not add up, Mark intervened. That a company the size of yours should be generating more profits. That maybe, I don't know, maybe your accountant is stealing from you. Or maybe you have expenses you are not declaring. I could not believe it. My own daughter, doubting me because of the words of that woman. Sarah, I said, trying to keep calm. My company is perfectly in order. I have annual audits. Everything is legal. I know, Mom, but what? But Victoria says you should let me review the books. That I studied accounting, that I could help you find irregularities. There it was. The true objective. They wanted access to my accounts, to my numbers, to everything. My company is not Victoria's business, I said, feeling how the rage began to rise up my throat. And it is not your business either, Sarah. It is my work, my effort. Mom, don't get mad. I am not mad. I am disappointed. I got up from the table. Mark and Sarah left shortly after. She tried to hug me. I let her, but something between us had broken. That night, alone in my house, I cried for the first time in years, because I understood that Victoria did not only want my money, she wanted to destroy the relationship with my daughter, and she was achieving it. But what I did not know was that that was just the beginning. The real attack had not yet started. The following weeks were a silent nightmare. Victoria no longer came to my house. She no longer needed to. She had planted the seed of doubt in my daughter's mind, and now she only had to water it and wait for it to grow. Sarah started calling me less. Our Sunday conversations became tense, full of uncomfortable silences. I asked how she was. She answered with monosyllables. I told her about the company. She changed the subject. It was like talking to a stranger who shared my daughter's face. One Tuesday morning, while I was driving to the factory, I noticed something strange. A gray sedan that had been following me for 3 blocks. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but when I turned onto a street that was not my usual route, the car did the same. They were following me. My heart skipped a beat. I accelerated a little. The car did too. I braked at a red light, with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I looked in the rearview mirror. A man of about 40 years, dark cap, sunglasses. He was holding something that looked like a camera. He was photographing me. When the light changed, I sped off and took a different path. I made unnecessary turns. I entered a parking lot. I left through the other side. Finally, I lost the gray sedan. But the damage was done. I no longer felt safe, not even in my own car. I arrived at the factory with my nerves destroyed. My assistant, Jessica, a 25-year-old girl who had been working with me for 3 years, noticed my state immediately. Mrs. Vance, do you feel okay? You are very pale. I told her about the car. She frowned, worried. Do you want us to call the police? No, I said, although I didn't know why. Maybe I am just paranoid. But I was not paranoid. 2 days later, I saw the same car parked in front of my house when I went out to buy bread. The driver pretended to read the newspaper. When he saw me looking at him, he started the engine and left. They were watching me. But who? And why? The answer arrived a week later, when my accountant, Mr. Stevens, called me with a trembling voice. Eleanor, I need to speak with you. It is urgent. We met at his office that same afternoon. Mr. Stevens was 68 years old. He had been managing the finances of Liberty Textiles for 15 years. He was a meticulous, honest man, one of those who checks every number 3 times before signing it. He was sweating when I arrived. What is happening, Stevens? Today someone came to the bank, he said, loosening his tie. A woman. She said she was a relative of yours. She asked for information about the company accounts. My soul fell to the floor. What woman? She did not give her full name. She only said she was your sister-in-law, that she was worried about you, that she had noticed strange movements and wanted to verify that everything was in order. Victoria. Again. And did they give her information? No. Mr. Stevens shook his head. The manager told her to get lost. He told her that without your written authorization, he could not give her anything. But the woman tried to bribe the teller. She offered her $500 for copies of your bank statements. I felt the floor moving under my feet. She was not only watching me, she was trying to buy banking information. Did the teller accept? No, thank God. The girl is honest. But she came to report it to me, and I come to report it to you. I remained quiet, processing. Victoria was playing dirty, very dirty. There is something else, continued Mr. Stevens, taking out a folder. I have been receiving calls, people asking about you. They say they are IRS auditors, that they are investigating irregularities in your tax returns. The IRS, huh? But I pay everything in order. I know. That is why it makes no sense. I called the IRS office directly. There is no open investigation against you. Those calls are fake. Fake? Someone is pretending to be tax authorities to intimidate me, so that I release information, or so that you make some mistake out of panic. It was a hunt. An organized, calculated hunt designed to trap me in some lie or irregularity that did not even exist. Stevens, what is happening? He looked at me with sadness. Someone wants to destroy you, Eleanor, and they have resources. This is not a matter of one person acting alone. This is professional. I returned home that afternoon with my stomach churning. I turned on the computer and searched on Google. Private investigators, Chicago. Dozens of pages appeared. Agencies that offered discreet investigations, personalized surveillance, obtaining evidence. Victoria had hired investigators on me. I was sure. And not only that, she was fabricating evidence, inventing irregularities, creating a narrative in which I was the villain. That night I could not sleep. I sat in the living room, looking at the photos of Sarah on the wall, my girl, my reason for living, the daughter for whom I had worked 30 years without rest. And now that same daughter doubted me. The final blow arrived 3 weeks later. Victoria called a family meeting at Sarah's house. A Sunday afternoon. The message I received from my daughter was cold, formal. Mom, we need to talk. Sunday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Please do not miss it. It is important. I arrived on time. Sarah opened the door, but she did not hug me. She only gestured toward the living room with a nod. Mark was sitting on the big armchair, Victoria on the one opposite, with her legs crossed, holding a thick folder. There was no coffee prepared. There were no cookies. There was no love in that house. Sit down, Mom, said Sarah. I sat down. I felt as if I were in a trial. Eleanor, began Victoria, without preambles. We have investigated, for months, and we found very worrying things. She opened the folder. She took out printed sheets. Bank statements I had never seen. Contracts with signatures that looked like mine, but were not. Invoices from phantom companies. Here it says, you paid $120,000 to a company called Pacific Distributors. Read Victoria. That company does not exist. It is a front. You used fake invoices to deduct taxes. That is not true, I said, feeling my voice break. I do not know that company. Here is your signature, she said, showing me the document. It was my signature, or a perfect forgery. Here is more, she continued. Unjustified cash withdrawals. $3,800,000 in the last 2 years. Where did that money go, Eleanor? To payroll? To suppliers? To... There are no receipts, she interrupted me. There are no invoices. There is nothing. Only money that disappears. I looked at my daughter. She had red eyes. She had been crying. Mom, said Sarah with a broken voice. Why didn't you tell us you had problems with the company? We could have helped. I do not have problems with the company, I managed to say. Everything is in order. This is a lie. Victoria is lying. I am lying? Victoria stood up, offended. Me? Eleanor, here are the proofs, official documents, bank statements, your own signature. That is not my signature. And so who forged it? Me? Why would I do that? I have nothing to gain. But she did. I knew it in that moment. I don't know how, but I knew it. Victoria wanted something. She wanted my company. She wanted my money. She wanted to destroy me. Mom, said Mark for the first time, we just want to protect Sarah. She is your only heir. If you have legal problems, those problems are going to fall on her. There it was, the true intention. They wanted me to sign something. Therefore, continued Victoria, taking out another document. "We have prepared this. It is a transfer of powers. You sign the company over to Sarah, temporarily, until this whole matter is cleared up. That way, she remains protected. And you too." "I am not going to sign anything," I said, standing up. "Mom, please." "No!" My voice came out stronger than I intended. "I am not going to sign anything. I have done nothing wrong, and I am not going to hand over my life's work to anyone." Victoria smiled, a cold smile, triumphant. "Then we will see you in court, Eleanor. Because if you do not want to resolve this as a family, we will resolve it with lawyers. And I warn you, you are not going to like the result." I left that house with my legs shaking. Sarah called me from the door, but I did not stop. I could not look at her. I could not see that doubt in her eyes. That night, sitting alone in my kitchen, with a cup of tea getting cold between my hands, I hit rock bottom. 67 years, a whole life of honest work. And now my own daughter saw me as a thief. I cried until I had no tears left, until only a cold void remained in my chest. And in that void, something new began to grow. Rage. The following days were the darkest of my life. Worse than when I buried Arthur. Worse than those nights when I didn't know how I was going to feed Sarah. Because this time, I was not fighting against poverty or bad luck. I was fighting against betrayal. I did not eat well for a week. I lost 10 pounds. My employees asked me if I was sick. Jessica brought me chicken soup that I barely tasted. Mr. Stevens looked at me with concern every time we reviewed numbers, because he saw me lost, absent. Sarah did not call. Not even once. I didn't call her either. What was I going to tell her? How do you explain to your daughter that the woman poisoning her mind is a professional liar? How do you compete against someone who has the perfect poison? One afternoon, while I drank coffee alone in my kitchen, the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the green button. "Mrs. Vance?" It was a woman's voice, young, nervous. "Yes? Who is speaking?" "My name is Ashley. I work at... I worked at a private investigation agency. Omega Security and Analysis." My skin crawled. "I don't know if you know," continued Ashley, speaking fast as if she were afraid. "But there is someone who hired our services to investigate you. A woman, Victoria Ortega, my sister-in-law." "I know," I said with a dry voice. "Ma'am, I quit 2 days ago, because what they asked me to do was not right, it was not legal, and I cannot stay silent." "What did they ask you to do?" Ashley took a deep breath. "Forge documents, alter bank statements, create evidence of transactions that never existed." My boss accepted, because she paid very well, $15,000. "But I cannot be part of that. You do not deserve what they are doing to you." I felt my heart beating in my ears. "Do you have proof of that?" "I have emails, recordings of conversations with my boss, and I have the original versions of the documents before they altered them. Everything is saved on my computer." "Why are you helping me?" "You don't know me." "Because my mom is also a business owner," said Ashley, and her voice broke. "And I wouldn't let anyone do this to her." We agreed to see each other the next day at a coffee shop downtown. Ashley arrived with a backpack full of folders, a USB drive, and a face full of guilt. "Here is everything," she said, passing me the USB, the original contracts, the ones they altered, the emails where Victoria explained exactly what she needed to falsify, and the recordings where my ex-boss promised her to make you look like a criminal. I reviewed the documents that same night. Every page was a stab wound. The bank statements Victoria had shown at the family meeting were manipulated. They had added false transactions. They had invented withdrawals I never made. They had created phantom companies with my name. Everything was a lie. A perfectly constructed lie. But the worst was not that. The worst was reading an email Ashley had included. An email Victoria sent to her boss at Omega Security. "I don't care how much it costs. I need that old woman to be completely discredited. I want her to lose her company. I want her own daughter to see her as the con artist she is. And when she is destroyed, when she has nothing and no one, I am going to be there to save my sister-in-law from the disaster her mother created. 50% of that company is going to belong to me. It is mine. I just have to be patient." I read that email 5 times, Every word was a hammer blow. Victoria did not only want to humiliate me. She not only wanted my company, she wanted my total destruction. She wanted my daughter to hate me. She wanted me to be left alone, in ruin, with nothing to live for. And she almost achieved it, because 2 days later, Victoria took the next step. I received a summons, legal, official, with seals and signatures. They were suing me for tax fraud, embezzlement of funds, and falsification of documents. The plaintiff, Victoria Ortega, on behalf of the interests of Sarah Vance, direct heir and affected party, she was using my daughter's name to sue me. I called Sarah. For the first time in 3 weeks, she answered on the 5th ring. "Mom? Sarah, did you know Victoria is suing me?" Silence. "Sarah, did you know?" "Mark says it is for the best," she whispered. "He says if we don't do something legal, you are going to end up in jail, and I am going to be left with nothing. Your husband is lying. Victoria is lying. All this is a trap, daughter. A trap to steal from me. Mom, enough." Her voice sounded tired. "Enough lying. Victoria showed me everything. The documents, the accounts. Your signature is there. You cannot keep denying it. That is not my signature. They forged everything. And why would someone do that? Why would Victoria spend her money investigating you if she wasn't right? I had no answer for that, or at least not one my daughter wanted to hear. "Sarah, please. I am your mother. When have I lied to you?" Another long, painful silence. "I don't know, Mom," she said finally. "I don't know what to believe anymore." And she hung up. I stayed with the phone in my hand, looking at the black screen. I felt something inside me break definitely. It was not my heart. It was worse. It was my hope. That night, Victoria uploaded a post to Facebook. I saw it because a distant cousin sent me a screenshot. Worried, the post said, "Sometimes the closest family is the one that defrauds you the most. When you discover that someone you trusted has been stealing from you for years, it hurts. But one must have the courage to report it, even if it is your own family. Justice for all. No more abuse." It had 237 likes, 43 comments from people who didn't know me, but who already hated me. How horrible that happened to you. Old people sometimes become greedy. Well done for reporting. Family or not, a thief is a thief. Victoria was destroying me publicly. And I could do nothing. If I responded, I would look desperate. If I didn't respond, I would seem guilty. I was trapped. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 months later. My lawyer, attorney Michael Davis, a man of 50, with 20 years of experience in corporate law, reviewed the documents Victoria had presented. "This is very well fabricated," he said, adjusting his glasses. "Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Can I win? We can fight. We have arguments. But Eleanor, I am going to be honest with you. These types of cases are complicated. The burden of proof falls on you to demonstrate the documents are fake, and that can take months, years even. And in the meantime, your reputation is going to be destroyed. Your clients are going to doubt. Your employees are going to be afraid. And your family," he paused, "your family is already divided." I left the lawyer's office feeling like I was walking in quicksand. Every step sank me further. That night, I sat on the floor of my living room surrounded by photos of Sarah, her first day of school, her graduation, her wedding. Every photo was a reminder of everything I had lost. And then I thought of Arthur, my husband, the man who had loved me unconditionally, the one who always told me, "Eleanor, you are stronger than you think. When they knock you down, you get up. And when they knock you down again, you get up stronger." Arthur would be furious if he saw me now. Defeated, surrendered. No, I was not going to give up. If Victoria wanted war, she would have war. But this time I would set the rules. I wiped my tears. I took a deep breath. And I took my phone. I dialed Attorney Davis's number. "Michael," I said when he answered, "I need you to hire someone, a forensic investigator, but not just anyone. The best you can find. Someone who can track every lie Victoria has built. That is going to be expensive, Eleanor. I don't care. Sell what has to be sold. But find him." There was a pause. "Are you sure?" "More sure than ever in my life." Because I had understood something. Victoria made a mistake. She underestimated me. She thought I was a weak old woman who would break with the first threat. She thought I would give up. But she didn't know who Eleanor Vance really was. I was the woman who had built an empire with broken hands. The one who had buried her husband and kept going. The one who had raised a daughter alone in a city that does not forgive. And if I had learned something in 67 years of life, it was this. When they take everything from you, you become dangerous. Because you no longer have anything to lose. 3 days after that call, I met Frank Miller. Attorney Davis met me in his office on a Friday morning. When I arrived, there was a man sitting in front of the desk, about 45 years old, gray hair at the temples, discreet but well-cut suit. He had the look of someone who has seen too much and is no longer surprised by anything. "Eleanor, this is Frank Miller," introduced Michael, digital forensic investigator. He worked 15 years in the DA's office. Now he works independently. Frank stood up and extended his hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. "Mrs. Vance," he said, "Attorney Davis brought me up to speed on your situation. And I must tell you something. I have seen many fraud cases in my career, but this one is particularly elaborate." We sat down. Frank opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. "Do you see this?" He pointed to a scanned document. "It is one of the bank statements your sister-in-law presented as evidence. At first glance, it looks legitimate. But if we zoom in here," he zoomed in on a section. "Do you see this font? Times New Roman, 12 points. Banks do not use Times New Roman in their digital statements. They use Arial or Helvetica. This document was edited in Word or Photoshop. I felt a relief so big I almost choked. Can you prove it?" "I can prove much more than that," said Frank. "But I need time, and I need access to everything. Your real bank accounts, your files, your emails, everything that can help me reconstruct the truth. You will have it." Frank leaned back in his chair. "Mrs. Vance, before we start, I need you to understand something. These types of investigations are not quick or cheap. I am going to have to track every document, every transaction, every email. I am going to have to interview people, maybe even infiltrate circles to obtain information. We are talking about $60,000, minimum, maybe more. I will pay it. And there is something more important," he continued. "Once I start digging, I am going to find everything, the good and the bad. If there is something in your company that is not in order, however small it is, I am going to discover it. And I am going to have to tell you and the lawyer. Are you prepared for that?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "I have nothing to hide." He smiled barely. "Then, let's start." During the following 6 weeks, I pretended to be defeated. It was part of the plan. Michael had advised me, let Victoria get confident. Let her think she won. People make mistakes when they feel invincible. So I acted my part. I stopped answering Sarah's calls. When my daughter looked for me, I spoke to her with a tired, resigned voice. I told her that maybe she was right, that maybe I had made mistakes, that I was old and confused. Sarah cried hearing me like that, but she didn't come to see me. Mark wouldn't let her. Victoria, for her part, was triumphant. I saw her on the street one afternoon, leaving an expensive restaurant with some friends. She laughed loud, gestured with her hands, told some story that made them roar with laughter. When she saw me, her smile widened. She waved at me, condescendingly. Like one greets someone who no longer represents any threat. Perfect. While she celebrated, Frank worked. He reported to me every 3 days, always in discreet places. Remote coffee shops, parks, empty parking lots. Never in his office nor in mine. "I found something interesting," he told me in our 3rd meeting. "Your sister-in-law does not have the money she appears to have. Her personal bank account never exceeds $40,000. She lives in a rented apartment. Her car is leased. And, nevertheless, she spent $150,000 to hire Omega Security. Where did she get that money?" "From a foundation," said Frank, showing me printed documents. "United Hands for Children Foundation, a charity organization that supposedly helps underprivileged children. Your sister-in-law is the administrative director and has been embezzling funds for 2 years." I froze. Is she stealing money from a children's foundation? Not only that, continued Frank, she used fake invoices to justify those expenses. Invoices that include your name, Mrs. Vance. Victoria made it appear that you sold services to the foundation that you never provided. Services for $400,000. What? If this comes to light, Mrs. Vance, she is not only going to accuse you of fraud in your company, she is going to get you into a scandal of embezzlement of funds from a charity organization. It is the perfect crime. She steals, but you appear as the guilty one. I felt I lacked air. Do you have proof? I have the bank records of the foundation. I have the fake invoices. I have emails where she orders her accountant at the foundation to process payments to phantom companies. And I have something better. He took out his phone and showed me an audio file. This is a conversation between your sister-in-law and her accountant. I recorded it 2 days ago. Listen. He pressed play. Victoria's voice was unmistakable. I don't care how you do it, Fernando. I need those $200,000 to disappear from the record, and you put them in as consulting services from that old woman. When all this explodes, she is going to be so sunk that no one is going to doubt that she also stole from the foundation. But, Victoria, if they audit us, they are not going to audit us. No one audits small foundations. And if they do, you have the documents that protect your ass. Mine too. The only one who is going to fall is Eleanor. Frank stopped the audio. She is not only falsely accusing you, she is incriminating you in her own crimes. My hands were shaking. What else do you have? Enough to sink her, said Frank. But I need 2 more weeks. I want to track every dollar she diverted, every document she falsified, and I want to find the connection with Omega Security. Because if I can prove she paid with stolen money to fabricate evidence against you, that is conspiracy. It is a federal crime. Do it. 2 weeks later, Frank arrived with a box of files. I have everything now, he said, emptying the box on Michael's desk. Here is the complete evidence. Victoria Ortega embezzled $740,000 from the foundation in the last 2 years. She used $150,000 to hire the private investigators. Other $200,000 she put in her personal account through transfers she disguised as expense reimbursements. The rest she used to pay lawyers, bribes, and fabricate documents. Michael reviewed every paper with eagle eyes. This is enough for an arrest warrant, he said. Fraud, forgery, embezzlement. We are talking about 8 to 10 years in prison. And what about Mark? I asked. Did he know? Frank shook his head. I didn't find evidence that he was directly involved, but your sister-in-law used his name on some documents. Electronic signature. Mark appears as a witness in several fake contracts of the foundation. He can claim ignorance, but he is still going to have legal problems. Minimum as an involuntary accomplice. I looked at all those documents. Every page was a bomb, every email, a grenade, and I had the entire arsenal. When can we act? I asked. Michael looked at his calendar. The preliminary hearing of your case is in 3 weeks, but I would recommend not waiting that long. If we present this to the district attorney now, they can detain her sooner. We prevent her from destroying evidence. No, I said firmly. I do not want to detain her now. Both looked at me, confused. Mrs. Vance, I want to do it in public, I explained. Victoria humiliated me in front of my family, my friends, my employees. I want everyone to see the truth, everyone, at the same time. What do you propose? I smiled for the first time in months, and it was not a kind smile. I am going to organize my New Year's Eve party. Like every year, I am going to invite everyone, Victoria too. And when she is there, confident, believing she already won, then we are going to destroy her. Michael frowned. That is risky. I know, I said. But I need my daughter to see the truth with her own eyes, for Sarah to understand what kind of viper has been manipulating her. If we do this in private, Victoria is going to convince her it is a conspiracy. But if it happens in public, with authorities present, with irrefutable evidence, there will be no way my daughter can keep doubting me. Frank nodded slowly. I understand. But it is going to need perfect coordination, and it is going to need the authorities to be on your side. Can you arrange it? I have contacts in the DA's office, he said. People who owe me favors. I can present the case unofficially, get them to prepare an arrest warrant, but we need exact timing. If Victoria smells something weird, she is not going to show up to that party. She won't smell anything, I promised, because I am going to give her exactly what she wants. I am going to invite her personally. I am going to tell her I want to make peace, that I am tired of fighting, that maybe she was right, and she is going to believe that? She is going to want to believe it, because people like Victoria need to see their victims surrender. They need the moment of triumph, and I am going to give it to her. There was a long silence. Okay, said Michael finally. We will do it your way, but if something goes wrong. Nothing is going to go wrong, I said, feeling how the strength returned to my voice. Because this time, I hold the cards. And for the first time in months, I felt something I had forgotten: hope. The transformation had to be perfect, credible. If Victoria suspected, even for a second, that I was planning something, everything would come down. So I became the woman she wanted to see. An old woman defeated, confused, on the verge of collapse. I started dressing differently. I stopped wearing my silk blouses and pressed trousers. I began to go out in simpler, more careless clothes. I let my hair grow a little without styling it. When I went to the supermarket, I walked slower, with my shoulders slumped. At the factory, I feigned mistakes. Nothing serious, just enough so my employees would worry. I forgot a meeting. I confused some dates on an order. Jessica, my assistant, looked at me with sadness. "Mrs. Vance, are you okay?" she asked me one day. "You aren't like this." "I am tired, Jessica," I told her. And I didn't have to fake the tiredness in my voice. Very tired. The news spread. Mrs. Vance was decaying. The pressure was destroying her. Some employees started looking for other jobs, worried about the future of the company. I understood. They had families to support. Victoria found out. Of course, the city is small when it comes to gossip. One afternoon, while I was buying vegetables at the farmer's market, I saw her. She came with 2 friends, the same ones from the restaurant. When she saw me, she whispered something to one of them. The 3 looked at me with that mixture of pity and satisfaction that only cruel people have. Victoria approached. "Eleanor," she said with a sugary voice. "What a surprise to see you here." "Hello, Victoria," I answered with a small voice, holding my bag of tomatoes. "How are you? You look different." "I am fine," I lied. "Just tired." "Of course, with everything that is happening," she said, faking concern. "It must be very difficult for you. But you know, if you had been honest from the beginning, none of this would have happened." Her friends nodded, as if she were a saint and I a repentant sinner. "Maybe you are right," I said, lowering my gaze. I saw how her eyes shone. Triumph, pure satisfaction. "Well, I hope you can soon accept reality," she continued. "For Sarah's sake, she is suffering a lot, you know. Seeing her cry for her mother breaks my heart. I wanted to slap her right there, but I squeezed the tomatoes in my hand and took a deep breath. "Yes," I managed to say. "For Sarah." She left laughing with her friends. I remained standing in the middle of the market, trembling with rage, but also smiling inside, because I had just confirmed something. Victoria was completely confident. She thought she had won. Meanwhile, Frank kept digging. We met every Tuesday at 6 in the morning at a coffee shop on the edge of town. So early that no one saw us. So far from my usual routes that no one could connect us. "I found something big," he told me in our 5th meeting, opening his laptop. "Do you remember those private investigators your sister-in-law hired?" "Omega Security," I nodded. "Exactly. Well, guess what? That company already has a dirty history. They were shut down 3 years ago for fabricating evidence in a divorce case. The owner, a guy named Gerald Nunez, spent 6 months in prison. When he got out, he reopened under another name, but it is the same operation. And did Victoria know that? Not only did she know. Frank turned the screen. "Look at this email." She specifically looked for an agency that was willing to work outside legal limits. Those are her exact words. I read the email. My sister-in-law had written, I need an agency that understands that sometimes one must be creative with the truth. I don't care about the methods. I only care about the results. Can you help me?" And Gerald Nunez had responded, "Mrs. Ortega, we specialize in complex cases. We understand that justice sometimes needs a little push. Our services cost $150,000, but we guarantee results." It was an explicit contract to fabricate evidence. "This is pure gold," I said. "There is more," continued Frank. "Ashley, the girl who contacted you, saved everything. Every file before and after editing it. I have the original PDFs of your real bank statements, and I have the altered versions. I can show pixel by pixel where they added numbers, where they changed dates, where they inserted false transactions." "And the witnesses? Is Ashley going to declare?" "She already signed a sworn statement. She is afraid. But she is willing to testify." I also found the accountant of Omega Security, a guy named Hector Ruiz. He is nervous because he knows that when this explodes, he is going to be an accomplice. I offered him immunity if he cooperates. He accepted. He is going to declare that Victoria paid with money from the foundation. And the foundation? Who else knows about the robbery? The president of the foundation is a businessman named Robert Salazar, 72 years old. Honest man who donated $5 million to start the project. I showed him the evidence unofficially. He is devastated. He believed in Victoria. He put her as director because she sold him a beautiful story about helping children. Is he going to report her? He already did. He filed a formal complaint with the district attorney. But I asked him to keep it frozen until you gave the signal. The prosecutor for economic crimes is a friend of mine. He understands what we are doing. How much evidence do we have in total?" Frank closed the laptop and looked at me seriously. "Mrs. Vance, we have enough to bury her. Diversion of $740,000. Falsification of documents in 3 different cases. Conspiracy to commit fraud, bribery, and use of someone else's identity without consent. Your sister-in-law is going to go to prison. Of that there is no doubt. The question is, how do you want it to happen?" "I want it to be public," I repeated. "I want everyone to see. Then, we need to coordinate with the district attorney. They have to be ready to act on the day of your party, with an arrest warrant in hand. And we need Victoria confident, present, suspecting nothing. Leave her to me." A week later, I called Sarah. My daughter sounded surprised to hear me. "Mom? Daughter?" I said with a weak, tired voice. "I need to talk to you. Are you okay?" "No, I am not okay. But I think you are right. I think I have been stubborn and proud. And maybe I did make mistakes." Sarah remained silent. I could hear her breathing. "What do you mean?" "I want to make peace," I said. "With you, with Mark, even with Victoria. I do not want to keep fighting. I am old, Sarah, and tired. And I do not want to die fighting with my only daughter." I heard her voice break. "Mom, I'm going to throw my New Year's Eve party, like always. And I want you to come. You, Mark, Victoria, everyone. I want to toast with you. I want to start the new year in peace." "Are you serious?" "Very serious. I already spoke with my lawyer. I am going to. I am going to consider signing the company over to your name. Victoria was right. It is the safest thing." There was a long pause. Then Sarah spoke, with tears in her voice. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for understanding. Will you come?" "Of course I will come. The 3 of us will go. Tell Victoria I invite her personally, that I want to apologize to her for having doubted her intentions. I will tell her." "Mom, this means a lot to me. To me too, daughter." I hung up and stared at the phone. I felt a pang of guilt for lying to my daughter. But it was necessary. Soon she would understand. 2 days later, Victoria called me. Her voice was pure satisfaction, poorly disguised. "Eleanor, Sarah told me you invited me to your party." "Yes," I said humbly. "I want you to come. I want us to make peace." "I am glad you have finally come to your senses," she said. "You know, I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to protect my sister-in-law. Liar, hypocrite, viper." "I know," I said, "and I appreciate it. Truly. And is it true you are going to sign over the company?" I am considering it. My lawyer is preparing the papers. That is good, Eleanor. That is good. You will see it is the best for everyone. Victoria, there is something else. What? I want you to bring those investigators, the ones you hired. I want to meet them. I want to thank them for helping discover the truth. There was a pause. Then, laughter. Are you serious? Very serious. If I am going to accept my responsibility, I want to do it correctly. In front of everyone. Eleanor, I don't know if please. It is important to me. Another pause. Okay, I will see if they can come. But I warn you, they are not cheap. Maybe they want to charge for the appearance. It doesn't matter. I will pay them. Agreed. I will bring them. When she hung up, I smiled. Victoria was going to bring her actors. She was going to stage another show for me. She was going to humiliate me once more, in front of everyone. Or so she thought. Because what she didn't know was that I had also invited some agents. But mine were real. And they were not coming to act. They were coming to arrest her. The preparations for the party were meticulous. Every detail had to be perfect. Not only for aesthetics, but because I needed Victoria to feel completely safe. I hired the same band as always. I ordered the same menu as every year. Roast beef, glazed ham, mashed potatoes, pies. I decorated the garden with the same yellow lights my husband Arthur hung when he was alive. Everything had to look normal, familiar, harmless. But under that facade of normality, there was a military operation. 3 days before the party, I met with the prosecutor for economic crimes, attorney Richard Montoya. Michael introduced us in his office. Montoya was a man of 50, with the serious face of someone who has seen too many criminals get away with it. Mrs. Vance, he said, shaking my hand. Frank showed me the evidence. It is one of the best documented fraud cases I have seen in years. Is it enough to arrest her? It is enough to sink her, he corrected. We have conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement of funds from a charity organization, falsification of official documents, bribery, and improper use of identity. We are talking about a minimum of 8 years in prison. Probably more. And what about Mark? I asked. My daughter's husband. Montoya reviewed a folder. He appears as a witness on several foundation documents, electronic signature, but we found no evidence that he knew what his sister was doing. Legally, he can claim ignorance, although he will have to testify and probably will face minor charges like negligence in document validation. Sarah is going to suffer a lot when this comes out. I know, said Montoya with a softer voice. That is why we are going to handle this delicately. The arrest is going to be fast, professional, nothing violent. But it has to be public, as you asked. Are you sure you want to do it this way? Completely sure. Very well. I'm going to send 2 ministerial agents and 2 from the police force. They will dress in civilian clothes until the moment of arrest. They will blend in with your guests. When you give the signal, I myself will enter with the arrest warrant, but, Mrs. Vance, I need you to understand. Once this starts, there is no turning back. You cannot change your mind at the last minute. I am not going to change my mind. And if your daughter gets mad at you, and if she accuses you of vengeance, my daughter has to see the truth, I said firmly. And the truth is that Victoria is a criminal. If Sarah hates me for that, I will have to live with it. But I am not going to let that woman keep destroying lives. Montoya felt satisfied. Then it is a plan. The party is Friday the 30th of December, correct? At 7 in the evening, my agents will arrive at 6:30. I will give you an emergency number. When you are ready, send a message with the word, now. We will wait for the signal. Understood? Understood. The day of the party dawned clear. A perfect blue sky, without clouds, as if even the weather were on my side. I woke up at 5 in the morning. I couldn't sleep much. I spent the night going over the plan again and again, looking for flaws, anticipating problems. At 9, the caterers arrived. At 10, the band. At 11, the waitstaff team. Everything was flowing. Jessica came to help me at 2 in the afternoon. Mrs. Vance, she said, hugging me. I don't know what is happening, but I want you to know that everyone at the factory is with you. Whatever happens tonight, How do you know something is going to happen? She smiled. Because I know you, and you are not the type of woman who gives up. Whatever it is you are planning, I trust you. I put on my best dress, a wine-colored one I had bought 2 years ago but had never worn. I fixed my hair. I put on makeup carefully. I wanted to look strong, dignified, not like the defeated woman I had been pretending to be. When I looked in the mirror, I saw Eleanor Vance, not the victim, the warrior. The guests started arriving at 7 sharp. Employees, suppliers, lifelong friends. Mr. Stevens, my accountant, arrived with his wife, Jessica with her boyfriend, my neighbors, people who had accompanied me through good times and bad. At 7:20, the undercover agents arrived. Michael pointed them out to me discreetly. 2 young women who looked like normal guests. 2 men of about 35 years dressed casually. They blended perfectly. At 7:40 Sarah arrived. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her get out of the car. My daughter, my beautiful daughter. She wore an ivory dress and her hair loose. She came with Mark, who looked uncomfortable, looking at the ground. Sarah hugged me, tight, like she did when she was a child. "Mom," she whispered, "thank you for doing this. Thank you for coming, daughter. Are you really going to sign the papers?" "We'll see," I said, stroking her hair. "Tonight everything will become clear." She looked at me strangely, but asked no more. At 7:50 Victoria arrived. She got out of an Uber with that arrogance that characterized her. She wore a tight black dress, high heels, hair gathered in a perfect bun. Behind her, 2 men. I recognized them from the description Frank had given me. Actors Victoria had hired to impersonate investigators. One was tall, about 50 years old, with glasses and a leather briefcase. The other, younger, 30-something, cheap suit, but well-pressed. Both had that fake smile of someone being paid to play a role. Victoria saw me and opened her arms theatrically. "Eleanor, what a pleasure to see you. And what a pretty party. Thanks for coming," I said, forcing a smile. "And look, I brought the boys," she said, pointing to the 2 men. "They were the ones who investigated your case. I thought it would be good for you to meet them." The investigators extended their hand. I shook it, feeling disgust. "A pleasure," said the older one. "I am Mr. Vargas, and he is my associate, Mr. Ramos. Neither Mr. nor associate, just cheap con artists." "The pleasure is mine," I lied. "Would you like something to drink?" "Whatever you have is fine," said Victoria, already walking toward the garden as if it were her party. Sarah approached me, confused. "Mom, why did you invite them?" "Because I need everyone to hear the truth, daughter. The complete truth." "What do you mean?" "You will know in a moment." The band was playing. People were eating, laughing, dancing. It was 8:30. The party was at its peak. Victoria strolled among the guests, boasting. She told whoever wanted to listen how she had saved Sarah from her mother-in-law's bad decisions, how she had discovered the fraud, how she had acted for the good of the family. I heard her tell one of my employees, "It is sad, right? Seeing how older people sometimes lose their judgment. But well, that is what family is for, to protect each other." I saw how that employee, Rose, a woman who had been working with me for 20 years, pressed her lips together with rage. She knew Victoria was lying, but she couldn't say anything. Not yet. At 7:55 I asked for the music to be lowered. I got up on a small stage we had prepared for the musicians. I took the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," I said, and my voice resonated in the garden. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me one more year in this tradition I love so much." Applause, smiles. Sarah looked at me from the front, proud. "This year has been difficult," I continued. "Very difficult. Many of you know what I have been through. The accusations, the doubts, the pain of feeling people you trust turn their back on you." Victoria smiled. She thought I was about to surrender publicly. "But tonight," I said, looking directly at her, "I want everyone to know the truth. The complete truth." Her smile wavered barely. "Victoria," I said, pointing at her, "you accused me of fraud, of stealing, of falsifying documents, and you brought these gentlemen as proof of my crimes." The 2 actors straightened up, nervous. "But there is something everyone needs to know," I continued, feeling the adrenaline run through my body. These men are not investigators. They are actors, paid by you, with money you stole from a charitable foundation. The garden fell into absolute silence. Victoria paled. What are you saying? I am saying the truth, I said with a firm voice. And it is not me who says it. It is them. I pointed toward the entrance. The doors opened. And it wasn't her actors entering. It was Prosecutor Montoya, 2 uniformed ministerial agents, and 2 police officers. Victoria turned toward them, eyes wide open. The 2 actors tried to back away, but the undercover agents had already surrounded them. Victoria Ortega, said Prosecutor Montoya with a clear and strong voice, you are under arrest for the crimes of fraud, embezzlement of funds, falsification of documents, and conspiracy. He took out the handcuffs, and in that moment, in front of 80 people, in front of my daughter, in front of everyone who ever doubted me, Victoria Ortega was arrested. The garden exploded in murmurs, 80 people speaking at the same time. Some shouted. Others took out their phones to record. The band stopped playing. The waiters froze with trays in their hands. Victoria backed away, shaking her head. No, 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 this is a mistake. Eleanor, what did you do? What I had to do, I answered, stepping down from the stage. Discover the truth. The agents approached. Victoria raised her hands as if that could stop them. Wait. I did nothing wrong. She is the criminal. Her! She pointed at me with her finger, hysterical. Ask these investigators. They have the proof. Prosecutor Montoya turned toward the 2 actors. Are you private investigators? The older one, the fake Mr. Vargas, stuttered. We. Are they actors? Interrupted Frank, who had just entered with a laptop under his arm. Edgar Campos and Mario Soto. I hired them this morning for $200 each to come to this party posing as investigators. Just like you hired them, Miss Ortega, to stage your show. Victoria looked at him with pure hate. Who the hell are you? Frank Miller, forensic investigator. And I have here every dollar you diverted from the United Hands Foundation. Every document you falsified. Every email where you planned to destroy Mrs. Vance. He opened the laptop on a nearby table. The screen was projected onto a white wall I had asked to be installed specifically for this. There, for everyone to see, appeared the Foundation's bank statements. The illegal transfers, the emails, one by one. Frank's voice was clear, professional, devastating. On March 15th of last year, Victoria Ortega authorized a transfer of $50,000 from the Foundation's account to a shell company called Pacific Distributors. That company does not exist. The money ended up in her personal account. He showed the receipt, Victoria's signature. Everything. On April 22nd, another transfer, $80,000. Same story. Shell company, money straight to her pocket. On June 10th. He continued. Victoria paid $150,000 to the agency Omega Security and Analysis to fabricate false evidence against Mrs. Vance. Here is the contract. Here is the email where she specifically asked for the documents to look authentic. On the screen appeared the email I had already read, but seeing it there, projected for everyone to read, was different. I don't care how much it costs. I need that old woman to be completely discredited. I heard people gasping. I saw how Mr. Stevens covered his mouth with his hand. I saw how Jessica cried with rage. But above all, I saw Sarah. My daughter was paralyzed, hands on her chest, eyes full of tears, looking at the screen as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Sarah. Victoria turned toward her, desperate. Sarah, don't believe him. He is lying. Your mother paid him to invent all this? Really? Asked Frank calmly. Then explain this. He pressed play on an audio file. Victoria's voice filled the garden. I don't care how you do it, Fernando. I need those $200,000 to disappear from the record, and you put them in as consulting services from that old woman. When all this explodes, she is going to be so sunk that no one is going to doubt that she also stole from the Foundation. The silence was absolute, heavy, crushing. That conversation, said Frank, was recorded 3 weeks ago. It is your voice, Miss Ortega. Your plan, your crime. Victoria staggered. Mark, who had been quiet all this time, took a step back, moving away from his sister as if she burned. "Victoria," he whispered. "What did you do?" "Nothing. I did nothing," she screamed. "This is a trap, a conspiracy. Eleanor has money. She has power. She bought all these." "No one bought anything," interrupted Prosecutor Montoya with a hard voice. "Miss Ortega, I have here an arrest warrant issued by the 3rd District Court. The charges are embezzlement of funds for an amount of $740,000, falsification of official documents in 3 different cases, conspiracy to commit fraud, and improper use of identity. Do you understand your rights? You are not going to arrest me." Victoria tried to run toward the exit. The 2 agents stopped her in 3 steps, held her by the arms. She fought, screamed, kicked. "Let me go. You have no right." "We have every right," said Montoya, placing the handcuffs on her. "And we have all the evidence. Miss Ortega, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you." Victoria looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. Deep, devastating. "Eleanor," she gasped. "Eleanor, please, we can fix this. I will return everything to you. I withdraw the lawsuit. I say I made a mistake. Whatever, please." I looked at her in silence. For months she had humiliated me. She had destroyed my relationship with my daughter. She had tried to steal everything I had worked for. She had made me cry until I ran out of tears. And now she begged. "No," I said simply. "Now you will face the consequences of what you did." The agents took her toward the exit. Victoria kept screaming, cursing, promising revenge. But with every step her voice became smaller, weaker. When they put her in the patrol car, the garden remained in silence. Then I heard a sob. "Sarah." My daughter was on her knees on the grass, crying, hands on her face. Mark tried to touch her, but she pulled away. I approached slowly. I knelt beside her, ignoring the pain in my 67-year-old knees. "Daughter." "Mom," she moaned. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Shh." I hugged her tight against my chest. "It's over. It's over. I accused you. I doubted you. I let that woman fill my head with lies. And you never did anything wrong. Never. Don't cry, Sarah." "How can I not cry?" She lifted her face, full of tears and snot and pain. "I am the worst daughter in the world. I betrayed you. I believed a stranger before you, my own mother." "You are not the worst daughter," I said, wiping her tears with my thumbs. "You are human. Victoria is very good at manipulating. That is what people like her do. They find your fears and use them against you. But I should have known. You couldn't know. She forged documents. She hired professionals. She created a perfect lie. No one blames you for believing it. I blame myself. I will blame myself for the rest of my life." I hugged her tighter. I cried with her. There, in the middle of 80 people, I let the tears flow. Tears of pain, yes, but also of relief, of liberation. Mark approached. He knelt beside us. "Missus Vance," he said with a broken voice. "I have no words. My sister, I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know what she was doing." "I know," I said. "Frank investigated it. He found no evidence that you were involved. But I signed documents. She used my name. My God, am an idiot. How did I not realize? Because you trusted your sister, just as Sarah trusted her." "Are you going to arrest me too?" he asked, and there was genuine terror in his eyes. "The prosecutor says you probably have to testify, maybe face minor charges for negligence. But you are not a criminal, Mark. You were just manipulated." He covered his face with his hands and cried. A grown man, crying like a child. Prosecutor Montoya approached us. "Mrs. Vance, I need you to come to the DA's office tomorrow at 9 in the morning for a formal statement. And you too, young man." He looked at Mark. "We need your testimony." "We will be there," I said. Montoya nodded and left. The other guests started approaching, one by one, hugging me, asking for forgiveness those who doubted, congratulating me those who always believed. Mr. Stevens hugged me tightly. "I knew you were going to win, Eleanor. I always knew it." Jessica also hugged me, crying. "Ma'am, You are the bravest woman I know. Rose, my employee of 20 years, took my hands. We never doubted, not for a second. The party did not continue. How could it? After what had just happened, no one was in the mood to dance. People started leaving little by little, each one processing what they had witnessed. By 11 at night, only Sarah, Mark, and I remained. We sat at the garden table, in silence, listening to the crickets, looking at the lights still hanging from the trees. "What is going to happen now?" asked Sarah with a small voice. "Victoria will go to trial," I explained. "According to Montoya, with all the evidence we have, she will probably accept a plea deal, 8 to 10 years in prison, restitution of all the money she stole." 10 years, repeated Sarah. "My God, she asked for it?" said Mark bitterly. "I can't believe she is my sister. The person I knew, or thought I knew, would never have done something like that." "Greed changes people," I said. "It turns them into monsters." Sarah took my hand. "Mom, can you forgive me? I know I have no right to ask. I know I hurt you horribly. But is there any way for us to recover what we had?" I looked her in the eyes. "My girl, my only daughter. The reason I had fought so hard. I already forgave you, Sarah. I forgave you from the first moment you doubted me. Really, really. Because you are my daughter. And a mother's love does not break. It bends, it stretches, it hurts, but it does not break." She cried again. But this time they were different tears. Tears of gratitude, of relief. "I love you, Mom. And I love you, my love, always." We stayed there until past midnight, talking, crying, healing. It wouldn't be easy. The wounds were deep. Trust would take time to fully return. But we were together, and that was what mattered. When they finally left, I stayed alone in my garden. The lights shone softly. The remains of the party were still there. Empty plates, abandoned glasses, napkins on the ground. I sat in my favorite chair. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in months I breathed deep. Freedom. Peace. Justice. Arthur would be proud. "I did it, love," I whispered to the wind. I won. And somewhere in the sky, I was sure, my husband was smiling. 2 months later, the world looked different. Not because the sun shone brighter, or because the streets were different, but because I was different. Lighter, as if I had been carrying an invisible weight for so long that I didn't even feel it, until finally I let it go. Victoria's trial was fast. Her lawyer, a nervous guy who sweated every time Frank presented a new piece of evidence, advised her to accept a deal. 8.5 years in prison. Full restitution of the $740,000 to the United Hands Foundation. And a public apology. The apology never came. At the final hearing, when the judge asked if she had anything to say, Victoria only looked at me with cold hate and murmured, "This doesn't end here," but it did end. The prison doors closed behind her on February 12th, and I slept through the night without nightmares for the first time in months. Mark and Sarah divorced. It was not an easy decision, but it was necessary. My son-in-law was not a bad man, but his sister's shadow was too big. Every time Sarah looked at him, she saw Victoria's eyes. Every conversation was contaminated by what had happened. They signed the papers one afternoon in March. I accompanied my daughter to the courthouse. When we came out, she cried on my shoulder. "I feel like I failed, Mom. Another marriage that doesn't work in the family." "You didn't fail," I told her, stroking her hair. "You survived, and that is much more important. Do you think one day I will be able to trust someone again?" "Yes, because you learned something that many people never learn, that people show you who they really are, and when they show you, you have to believe them." Sarah moved back home with me for 3 months, not because she needed it financially, but because she needed to heal. She needed to be a daughter again, before being an independent adult again. Those weeks were the sweetest I had had in years. We had breakfast together every morning, coffee with pastries. She told me about her work. I told her about the factory. At night we watched old movies in the living room, huddled under the same blanket like when she was a child. One night, while we watched a romantic comedy that made us laugh, Sarah paused the movie. "Mom, there is something I need to ask you. Tell me, did you ever think about giving up? When everything got worse, when I turned my back on you, did you ever want to simply stop fighting? I thought about those dark nights, in the crying that choked me, in the pain of feeling that my own daughter didn't believe in me. Yes, I admitted. There were moments when I wanted to give up, when I thought maybe it would be easier to sign everything, hand my company over to Victoria, and simply disappear. And what stopped you? You. Me? You, Sarah. Because if I gave up, I was teaching my daughter that when things get difficult, one gives up. That when you are accused unjustly, you lower your head. And I didn't want you to learn that. I wanted you to see that it is worth fighting for the truth, that it is worth defending yourself, even when the whole world seems to be against you. Sarah hugged me and whispered, not out of sadness, out of love. You are the best mom in the world, she whispered. And I was an idiot. You weren't an idiot. You were human. In May, Sarah finally found her own apartment, small, cozy, in the city. I helped her move. We carried boxes together, assembled furniture, hung pictures. It was a new beginning for her. The day we finished decorating, we sat in her new living room, with 2 glasses of cheap wine, admiring our work. Mom, said Sarah, I want you to know something. I have been going to therapy. Really? Yes. Because I realized I have problems with trust, with boundaries, with allowing people to manipulate me, and I want to work on that. I don't want to be so naive again. I am glad you are doing that, daughter. It is very brave of you. My therapist says that maybe deep down I wanted to believe Victoria because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid that if something happened to you, I would be left completely alone. And when Victoria convinced me that you were doing bad things, it was like, as if I were already preparing myself to lose you. Does it make sense? I nodded slowly. All the sense in the world, but the truth is, I was never alone. You were always there. Even when I didn't believe you, you were still my mom. You were still fighting for me. I am always going to fight for you, Sarah, until my last breath. We hugged. And in that hug, we sealed something. A pact. A promise that what had happened had broken us, yes, but it had also made us stronger. The company also changed. Liberty Textiles grew that year more than ever. The story had gone viral. The media covered the case. 67-year-old businesswoman dismantles plot to steal her company. Warrior grandmother defeats fraudulent sister-in-law in epic legal battle. I didn't like the attention, but it brought clients. Many clients. People who wanted to work with someone who had demonstrated integrity under fire. By June, I had to hire 15 more employees. We opened a second plant upstate. The numbers were better than ever. One afternoon, Mr. Stevens entered my office with a proposal. Eleanor, I have been thinking. You should consider succession. Succession? Stevens, I don't plan on dying anytime soon. It is not that, he laughed. But you are 67 years old. Someday you are going to want to retire. And when that day comes, the company needs to be prepared. What do you propose? That you give Sarah 30% of the company. That you bring her in as vice president. That she starts learning the business from the inside. She has a brain for numbers. And after everything that happened, I think she appreciates the value of honest work. I thought about that for a week. Then I called Sarah to my office. Daughter, I want to offer you something. I explained the proposal. 30% of Liberty Textiles. A position as vice president. Learn the business. Eventually, take control when I retired. Sarah looked at me with eyes wide open. Mom, after everything that happened, do you trust me for this? I trust you precisely because of everything that happened, I said. You learned a lesson money cannot buy. You learned to question, to verify, not to trust blindly. That makes you perfect for this job. But I don't know anything about textiles. I didn't know either when I started. One learns. And I am going to be here to teach you. Sarah accepted. She started working with me in July. At first it was difficult. She made mistakes, but she learned fast. She had the same fire I had at her age, the same determination. By October, she managed all the administrative part. By December, she had renegotiated 3 major contracts, saving the company almost $200,000. The night of December 30th, a year after that memorable party, I organized another celebration. Smaller this time, only 50 guests. Close people, people who really mattered. Sarah arrived early to help me prepare. We hung the lights together. We cooked together. We laughed together. At 8 at night, with everyone gathered, I took the microphone. "A year ago," I said, "in this same place I lived the most difficult and most liberating night of my life. Many of you were there. You saw it all. There were murmurs of agreement, smiles of complicity. That night I learned something important. I learned that the truth always comes to light, that justice, although slow, eventually arrives, and that true family is not the one that shares your blood, but the one that stands by your side when everything crumbles." I looked at Sarah. She had tears in her eyes. This year was not easy. There was pain, there was loss, but there was also growth. There was forgiveness. There was love. And for that, tonight I want to toast, not for revenge, not for victory, but for second chances. I raised my glass. For learning from mistakes, for getting up after falling, for knowing when to fight and when to forgive, and for the people who never abandon us, even when we abandon ourselves. "Cheers!" everyone shouted in unison. We toasted. The music started. People danced. And I sat in my garden chair, watching my daughter dance with Jessica and Rose, laughing like I hadn't seen her laugh in years. Mr. Stevens sat beside me. "You did well, Eleanor. Arthur would be proud." "Thank you, Stevens." "Do you ever think about Victoria?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "I wonder if in that cell, she will have reflected on what she did. If she will have understood that greed leads nowhere." "And you? Did you forgive her?" I thought about that question, long and deeply. "I don't know if I forgave her," I said finally, "but I let her go. She no longer lives in my head rent-free, as the young people say. I no longer dedicate my energy to her, and I think that is the closest to forgiveness I am going to get." Stevens nodded wisely. "It is enough." At midnight, when the bells rang, I hugged Sarah. "Happy New Year, Mom," she said. "Happy New Year, my love. Do you know what is the best thing about this year?" "What?" "That I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to pretend everything is okay when it is not, because now it really is okay. It is us. Together, as it should be, as it always should have been." That night, when everyone left and I stayed alone cleaning, I found a photo that had fallen from the table. It was from Sarah's wedding. There was Victoria, smiling at the camera with that red dress. I looked at it for a long moment. Then I tore it in half and threw it in the trash. Some chapters of life simply have to end. I went to sleep that night with a light heart, with the windows open so the fresh January air could enter, with the certainty that I had done the right thing. And while I fell asleep, I thought of all the women who are going through what I went through, those who are being accused unjustly, those who are being manipulated by relatives, poisoned by greed, those who feel alone, defeated, without a way out. And I wanted to tell them something. Don't give up. Fight. Seek the truth. And know that in the end, when the dust settles and the lies crumble, the only thing left standing is who you really are. I am Eleanor Vance. I am 68 years old. I built an empire with my hands. I buried my husband and kept going. I raised a daughter alone. I faced betrayal and came out victorious. And if I could do it, you can too. Because true wealth is not in what you possess, it is in what you do not allow them to take from you. Your dignity, your truth, your strength. That no one can steal from you unless you allow it, and I will never allow it. The end. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching us from. What part of this story reached you deepest? Have you lived something similar? Your story matters, and I would love to read it. Hit like if you think Eleanor did the right thing. And subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories that make you feel, that make you think, that remind you it is never too late to defend yourself. Because here we share more than stories. We share lessons. We share strength. We share hope. See you in the next story. Take care. And remember, your truth is worth defending.